So picture this. You open your laptop, right? It's Monday morning.
Ugh, the worst time of the week.
Oh, absolutely. And normally you'd click your email app and just, brace yourself for the weekend backlog. But instead you just sit there and watch your cursor move on its own.
Which sounds a little terrifying, honestly.
I mean, yeah, it really does. But it opens a spreadsheet. It pulls numbers from a threaded conversation you had like 3 days ago. Then it cross-references that with your company's brand guidelines from a totally separate folder. And it just builds a complete, fully formatted 15-slide deck.
All before you've even had your first sip of coffee.
Exactly. Like, that sounds like a scene from some sci-fi movie about the distant future. But as of July 9th, 2026, that is literally your new coworker.
It really is. And I mean, it completely shatters the boundaries of what we've traditionally called software. Because we are so used to tools that wait patiently for our input,
Right, yeah. Like a word processor doesn't just start typing until you press a key.
Exactly. But what we are looking at now with this launch is, well, it's the culmination of years of research, basically shifting us from these reactive tools to proactive agents.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because for you listening right now, this could fundamentally rewire how you spend your hours from 9 to 5. Today, our mission on this deep dive is to cut through all the marketing hype of OpenAI's launch of ChatGPT Work, which is powered by their new GPT-5.6 model family.
Yeah, there is a lot of noise out there right now about this.
So much noise. So we're going to synthesize the official announcements, look at the underlying cognitive science from some recent academic papers, and basically figure out if this is just another minor software update or, total tectonic shift in the modern workplace.
And to really grasp the magnitude of this release, we have to look at the architecture of how you actually get work done. Because until now, artificial intelligence has largely lived in a vacuum.
Okay.
You open a browser tab, you paste some text into a chat window, you ask a question, and you get an answer. It was entirely isolated from the actual environment where your business happens.
Yeah, it felt like having a really smart consultant, but they're trapped in a glass box on your desk.
That's a great way to put it.
Like you had to feed them every single piece of paper through this tiny little slot. But the phrase jumping out of all the technical documentation for this new release is advanced contextual integration. So basically, the glass box is gone.
Gone entirely. ChatGPT Work is designed to natively embed itself into the nervous system of your operating system and your cloud architecture.
Wow.
It connects directly to your Google Drive, your Slack workspaces, your CRM software, your email client. It actually has persistent access to the flow of information across all those different silos.
Which means it's operating in what they're calling agent mode.
Right.
It isn't just, fetching trivia anymore. It's executing multi-step tasks. Let's actually ground this in a real scenario from the release notes. Let's say you're a regional sales director. You don't have to spend 3 hours hunting down the Q3 performance metrics and the latest pricing sheets. You simply instruct the AI to draft a personalized sales proposal for a specific client based on your email history with them and the new pricing tiers.
And it just goes out and does it.
Right. It goes out, finds the emails, finds the pricing sheet, synthesizes the tone of your past conversations, and generates the document.
And that ability right there to synthesize across totally different applications is the defining characteristic of an agentic system.
Okay, so it's making connections.
Yeah. It is taking raw, chaotic, unstructured data from completely different formats, like a casual Slack message, a rigid financial spreadsheet, a formatted PDF. It understands the relationships between them and formats a final deliverable. You can literally ask it to take your disorganized brain dump of weekly notes and turn them into a polished executive dashboard.
See, my immediate reaction to that, though, is a bit of skepticism. Because it sounds less like a magic 8-ball that just gives you answers, and more like an incredibly eager intern who somehow got hold of the master keys to the company filing cabinets.
I mean, that's a fair concern.
Right. My pushback here is about control. If I ask this agent to build a 15-slide deck, and it goes rogue on slide 3 because it misinterpreted some random Slack message, am I just going to spend all my time micromanaging an AI? Am I replacing the work of creating with the arguably worse work of babysitting?
What's fascinating here is that this micromanagement fatigue you're talking about, it's actually a well-documented bottleneck in human-computer interaction.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If a system requires constant, tedious correction, humans simply abandon it. We just go back to doing it ourselves. What OpenAI has done to mitigate this is build an architecture centered on what they call iterative collaboration.
Iterative collaboration.
Right,
Okay.
so the system isn't a black box where you hit enter and pray for a good result 10 minutes later.
So you aren't just sending it off into the dark to do its thing.
No, not at all. It works side by side with you in real time. If it's building a web application or drafting a complex proposal, you can actually watch its progress on the screen.
Oh, wow.
The interface allows you to interrupt the agent mid-process. You can see it pulling the wrong context for a slide, step in and just say, no, focus on the enterprise tier pricing, not the consumer tier, and the agent instantly course corrects and continues.
I like to think of it like hiring a world-class sous chef. A standard tool just hands you a knife when you ask for it. But this new agent is a sous chef who already looked at your menu, knows you're making French onion soup, and starts pre-chopping the onions exactly the way you like them based on the last 3 times you cooked together.
That's exactly it.
But if you decide to change the recipe halfway through, you just, tap them on the shoulder.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. The machine absorbs all the heavy lifting, the tedious data gathering, the formatting, the preliminary synthesis, so that you can operate exclusively as the creative director.
But, and this is a big but operating at that level, where the AI is reading 50 Slack messages, cross-referencing a PDF, and writing a script, that requires an absurd amount of computational horsepower. We aren't talking about a generic, one-size-fits-all model anymore, are we?
We aren't, and that brings us to the actual engine under the hood.
Yeah.
To handle this level of autonomous routing, OpenAI couldn't just release a single monolithic model.
Right.
The 5.6 generation is actually a family of 3 distinct variants, and each one is engineered for a specific kind of cognitive load. They've designated them Sol, Terra, and Luna.
Okay, walk us through how those break down, because this seems like a major shift in how we actually buy and deploy AI as businesses.
It is a massive shift in resource allocation. Let's start at the very top. Sol is the flagship variant. This is the heavyweight, high-parameter model designed for complex, deep reasoning.
So this is the big guns.
Exactly. You deploy Sol when a task requires extreme logical rigor, long horizon planning, or heavy code generation. But because it requires so much server compute to run, it operates on premium token pricing.
Okay, let's pause there. For those listening who might not be deep in the developer weeds, let's quickly clarify what a token is. You can basically think of tokens as the basic building blocks of language for an AI.
Right.
They are fragments of words. When the AI reads your prompt or generates an answer, it is processing and charging you based on those tiny fragments. So, premium token pricing means every word Sol reads or writes costs significantly more computation and therefore money.
That's a really great way to visualize it. And because of that high cost, you do not want to use Sol for everything.
Yeah, that would get expensive fast.
Very fast. That is where Terra comes in. Terra is the balanced workhorse. It has a slightly smaller parameter count, meaning it's cheaper and faster to run, but it retains enough reasoning capability to handle your daily operational grind.
Like what kind of stuff?
Drafting emails, summarizing standard meetings, organizing schedules. OpenAI is actually rolling a basic version of Terra out to their free tiers right now.
Okay, so that's Sol and Terra, and then there's Luna.
Right. Luna is all about speed and economy. It is the lightweight model. It's designed for high-volume, highly repetitive tasks where you don't really need deep logical synthesis, but you do need thousands of actions performed per minute.
Like sorting data.
Yeah, bulk data sorting or basic customer service triage. Things that need to happen instantly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because this tiered approach, it completely mirrors how a functional business operates.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you wouldn't hire a senior board-level architect to sit in the mailroom and sort envelopes. You use Luna for the mailroom, you use Terra for the middle management daily grind, and you save Sol for the massive company-defining architectural problems.
Structuring the rollout this way is really a masterclass in scalability. It democratizes access across all tiers of business. A solo freelancer on a Plus plan can utilize Terra to automate their invoicing and client communications. Meanwhile, a massive multinational corporation on an enterprise plan can deploy fleets of Sol agents to analyze global market trends.
And checking the sources, they emphasize that there's a distinct split in how it handles technical deliverables versus written ones. The desktop application integrates heavily with something called Codex.
Yes. So Codex is essentially a highly specialized neural pathway trained exclusively on billions of lines of programming languages.
So it's just for code.
Exactly. When the system detects that your request involves building software, debugging, or deploying an app, It automatically routes that task through the codex infrastructure. That ensures the syntax and logic are mathematically sound.
Okay, that makes sense.
For everything else, like marketing copy, legal drafts, financial summaries, the standard work module just takes over.
But let's pause for a second, because if an enterprise company is letting Solve dig through their proprietary financial data, security has to be the immediate elephant in the room. I mean, as nobody wants their private data leaking.
It is the single biggest barrier to enterprise adoption, bar none, which is why this release heavily emphasizes SOC 2 compliance.
Right. And for those outside of IT procurement, SOC 2 is basically the gold standard security certification. It means independent, third-party auditors have relentlessly tested the system to guarantee that customer data is encrypted, private, and structurally isolated.
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
It actually proves the AI isn't going to accidentally leak your Q3 roadmap into the public training data for everyone else to see.
And you combine that certification with strict administrator controls, where IT departments can dictate exactly which folders the AI can and cannot see, and you basically have a system built for corporate trust.
Okay, so that structural design makes sense on paper, but I want to dig into the actual science of how this works, because this is where my mind starts to bend a little bit. If I give the Sol model a massively complex prompt like, read these 3 separate financial reports, find the discrepancies in the marketing spend, and write a web application that visualizes those discrepancies, how does a language model actually do that? Fundamentally, aren't these models just predicting the next word in a sequence? How does a glorified autocomplete not get completely lost and confused halfway through a massive task like that?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question right there. And to answer it, we have to look at the recent academic literature that's driving this 5.6 release. If you look at papers from major AI conferences like NeurIPS, the breakthroughs aren't just about making the models bigger with more parameters.
Right, it's not just about brute force anymore.
No, it's about fundamentally changing how the models process information. And there are 2 core concepts at play here: chain of thought prompting and the ReACT framework.
Okay, let's translate those mechanisms into plain English.
Yeah.
How does chain of thought actually prevent the AI from getting hopelessly confused?
Think about how you solve a complex math problem. If I ask you to multiply 347 by 89 in your head and shout out the answer immediately, you are probably going to guess wrong.
Oh, I would definitely guess wrong. I wouldn't even be close.
Right, because you are forcing your brain to make a massive leap all at once. Older AI models worked exactly that way. They tried to leap directly from your complex prompt to the final output. That massive leap across a neural network is what causes hallucinations. It basically just panics and makes a probabilistic guess.
Right, it hallucinates a totally plausible sounding but factually wrong answer.
Exactly. So what chain of thought does is it forces the AI to show its work step by step before it delivers the final answer.
Like a high school math teacher making you write it all out.
Yes. By forcing the model to generate intermediate tokens, essentially writing down on a digital scratchpad, it changes its own context window. Step 1 becomes the anchor for step 2. Step 2 becomes the logical anchor for step 3.
Oh, is he?
It replaces one massive, risky, probabilistic leap with a series of small, mathematically grounded steps.
That makes perfect sense. It's anchoring itself in its own generated logic so it doesn't lose the plot. Okay, and what about the ReACT framework?
ReACT stands for reasoning and acting. Chain of thought is just internal logic, right? ReACT is what happens when you give that logic hands.
Hands.
Yeah, it creates a loop. The AI reasons about a problem, then it takes an action in the real world, like typing a search query into your Google Drive, observes the result of that action, and then reasons about what to do next based on what it actually found.
Okay, so wait. If it searches my drive for, let's say, Q3 marketing budget and nothing comes up, instead of just failing or hallucinating a fake budget, the ReACT loop tells it to observe that failure, reason that the file might be named differently, and act again by searching for Q3 spend.
Exactly. That loop of reasoning, acting, and observing is what gives the agent persistence. It doesn't just give up when it hits a roadblock. It dynamically adjusts its strategy, just like a human would.
And researchers in applied cognitive psychology and human-computer interaction note that when an AI can handle that persistent context, it drastically reduces the cognitive load on the human user.
It does.
But I want to challenge that premise for a second.
Go for it.
Because the whole pitch is that this frees up my brain, right? But if I know the AI is still a probabilistic machine that can occasionally mess up its ReACT loop, I have to constantly monitor it. I have to check its math, verify it pulled the right budget, and make sure it didn't accidentally grab a file from 2022 instead of 2026. Doesn't that just replace the cognitive load of actually doing the work with the cognitive load of aggressively auditing the work?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that tension you are identifying is the central debate in the academic community right now. The research absolutely validates your concern. The AI is unparalleled at reducing the friction of gathering and structuring data, but the necessity of human supervision cannot be engineered away.
Because the stakes are just too high.
Unimaginably high. If you are using this in legal discovery, medical administration, or enterprise financial forecasting, a hallucinated precedent or a misapplied decimal point is catastrophic.
Right, you can't just say, whoops, the AI did it.
Exactly. The consensus across the literature is that these agents are not replacements for human experts. They are highly capable co-pilots. The AI can plot the course and fly the plane for most of the journey, but a human absolutely must be in the cockpit to verify the instruments and actually land the plane.
But that absolute requirement for a human in the loop is where this utopian vision of seamless productivity crashes into the messy reality of the actual workforce. If we zoom out and look at the macro impact of this, the sources raise a really uncomfortable concept: de-skilling.
Deskilling is a major area of study in workplace automation right now. When a system is so proficient at executing foundational tasks like drafting the emails, summarizing the quarterly reports, building the spreadsheets, there is a highly documented risk that human workers become over-reliant on the tool and lose those foundational skills themselves.
So what does this all mean for our brains? I keep thinking about how we use GPS navigation on our phones.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
Right. Because 10 or 15 years ago, you had a mental map of your city. You understood the relationship between neighborhoods. You used to print out MapQuest directions and actually read them. Now, we just blindly follow the blue line on the screen. Some of us literally cannot navigate our own zip codes without our phones.
It's true.
If ChatGPT Work is summarizing every vital meeting and structuring every core proposal, do we lose our mental map of our own businesses? Do we lose the deep structural understanding of our own workflows because we just aren't wrestling with the raw material anymore?
The spatial memory degradation caused by GPS is the perfect parallel for what researchers fear could happen to professional competency. If the AI handles all the entry-level analytical work, we face a critical pipeline problem.
How so?
Well, how does an entry-level employee ever develop the deep expertise required to become a senior strategist if they never had to wrestle with the data themselves? They never learned the hard way.
Oh, wow.
The open question in the corporate world right now is whether this technology will require massive, mandatory upskilling programs just to ensure humans maintain their baseline competencies.
And the urgency to answer that question is intense because the timeline is accelerating. The rollout of GPT 5.6 isn't happening in a vacuum. OpenAI is locked in an absolute arms race.
A fiercely funded arms race. They are competing directly with Anthropic, Google, XAI, and open source models from Meta. The market pressure to push these autonomous agent features faster, to make them more deeply integrated, is immense.
Which brings up a really interesting detail from the launch timeline that we should mention. The official sources note that this July 9th launch only occurred after a, quote, limited government review. Now, we aren't going to take any sides on the politics of tech regulation here. We are just looking at the facts. But structurally, that detail highlights the intense friction between the speed of Silicon Valley innovation and the speed of regulatory frameworks trying to understand what this means for the labor market.
It really illustrates the tightrope the entire industry is walking right now. But returning to your point about the human pipeline and the fear of deskilling, this raises an important question about the hard limits of the technology. As we discussed, these models are probabilistic.
Right.
They will always carry a non-zero risk of factual error and logic failure when dealing with novel out-of-distribution problems they haven't seen before. Therefore, the ultimate competitive advantage isn't going to be the AI itself, because eventually everyone will have the AI.
The advantage is going to be the human who knows how to wield it.
Precisely. The most valuable professional in this new landscape will be the one who combines the raw throughput of the agent with sharp human judgment, rigorous verification, and genuine strategic creativity. The tool scales endlessly with your ambition, but its outputs are entirely dependent on your oversight.
So pulling all of these threads together, we've covered an enormous amount of ground today on this deep dive. We've explored how ChatGPT Work and the GPT 5.6 family Sol, Terra, and Luna represent a fundamental leap from reactive chat windows to proactive embedded agents.
Yeah, and we've broken down how cognitive mechanisms like chain of thought and the React loop allow these models to maintain persistent context, fundamentally altering the cognitive load on the user.
And we've also mapped out the friction points.
Yeah,
The strict necessity of SOC2 security, the very real danger of descaling, and the absolute requirement for human-in-the-loop verification.
it's a lot to take in.
It is. So for you, listening right now, our call to action is to lean into this shift cautiously but deliberately. Whatever tier you have access to, start testing it. The key to integrating this into your daily routine, based on everything we've analyzed across all these sources, is to treat the AI like that eager new intern.
Exactly.
Start with rigidly defined objectives, use incredibly clear prompts, and always relentlessly verify the outputs. Do not blindly trust the blue line on the GPS.
Because verification is your only real firewall against over-reliance.
Exactly. And that leaves me with one final lingering thought I want you to mull over. We started by comparing this shift to onboarding a new employee. Well, if this technology continues its current trajectory, and this AI becomes the perfect doer, flawlessly executing your slides, writing your code, analyzing your spreadsheets, will the very definition of a valuable employee completely invert. In a few short years, your career trajectory might not depend at all on what you can personally produce with your own two hands. Instead, your success might depend entirely on your ability to act as a brilliant manager to a massive fleet of digital agents. Something to think about the next time you open your laptop and look at that blinking cursor.